Good evening. It's time to write some Haskell again. So the plan for today is to maybe try and finish up the program I've been working on for the last few weeks. This is the program to take a list of people and shuffle that list for me and then work through the list so that I can talk to people in turn, but in a kind of random order. Last week we did some tidy up on the types of the actions that we're using. And it left a bit of a mess behind in some of the code. I want to tidy that up, but I think to do that, I'd really like to deal with the config stuff properly, which I've been putting off doing up to now. So I'll have a look at that and see if we can finish the program altogether, or at least finish it for as much as I'm going to do in the live streaming. And maybe next week we can start a new project. I think that'd be quite exciting. I think I'd like to look at Servant and try and write some kind of web app, but it all depends on getting stuff finished today. So maybe let's get cracking. Before we start though, just a quick reminder about the Haskell conference next week, next Friday. It's a free conference. I'm not affiliated with it in any way, I just think it's exciting. So I've got my ticket and maybe you should as well. Cool. Okay, so let's write some code. So this is the config stuff I was talking about last week, or kind of, and not last week, sorry, that I was fixing last week. I changed the type of actions. Actually, let's go grab the actions file. So an action is now using this RWS monad stack. So previously it was taking a config and returning a config, sorry, each of these actions. So a function here, instead of saying action, it would take a config, it would return a config, and it would be computed under IO so that we could do some side effecting as well. And now we changed that so that it's given this monad stack. It can get the config out of there, it can get the state out of there, and it can emit results from the action. The result it's emitting is some combination of the names in the file, either like the current name or a list of names or nothing as well. So that's the new structure for writing actions. To make that work, we had to come back to main. We build our initial config and our initial state, then we call run command. Run command is a bit of a mess now, that's what I need to go and fix. It gives us back a final state, which we save into a file, and W is the writer part of the monad stack. And we call print results, which just prints out the contents of this file, or the contents of whatever's returned here. Okay, so run command has ended up with I don't even know what this does anymore. So it tries to work out what the command is by looking at args. So here it's actually getting the arguments for the first time. And it's saying, okay, if there are no arguments, then what's DC action? Oh, it's the default action. Okay, so no arguments, which means that we run the default action, which may or may not be present, actually. I think that's some of what this is trying to deal with. What's D in this case? What command D is? Okay, so D of commands is getting back maybe a default command, and then we're calling DC action to get the action out of that if something is returned. So if there's no default action, then it will get nothing. If there is a default action, then it will get just that action. The rest of this is dealing with, if you do give it a command, then we look it up. If it's a normal command, then we just return the action from that command. If it's a command that takes arguments, then we return that action with the extra arguments partially applied, and if we don't find anything, then we just return nothing, and then Down here, we check again and we say, okay, we didn't get command. We print out the usage. Otherwise, we will actually execute something and then return it. Why have I got a let and then a pure down here? I'm not sure that makes sense. Like, isn't that the same as not doing that? Let me just try. I just want to check with the compiler, see if this, if I need to do this. Oops. Yeah, it's the same thing. There's no point in assigning it to a variable and then returning that variable. Just return it. Okay, so what do I need to do? No. Okay. I want to refactor this. This is very procedural and a bit long. But before I refactor it, I want to take a look again at how we're building our state and what goes into the state. Because I got this idea that happens here. So we have auto config. Sorry, not building state, building config. We have the config in here, which currently just has the file path and seed. And file path is hard coded. What I'm thinking of doing is expanding this a bit. So as well as returning the file path and the seed, we look at command line arguments. So we can pass in a path to the file. And because we're going to be looking at command line arguments, we might as well like pull out the args and the or the command name and the extra arguments that, oops, not happening there, it's currently happening in here. So this work of get args and then having a look to see whether or not there are arguments. I think we could do that when we're building the config and then pass the config into here, so that rather than performing more I/O and getting the stuff here, we just grab it out of the config. That's my thinking anyway. So to do that, I'm thinking we could have just a string here, just a string, maybe a string, sorry. So we will, if the command is passed in, then we'll put it into config. If it's not, then that will be nothing. And then we have something like extra args. And that's a list of strings. Okay. So I might have just define a default config. And that's just going to be of type autoconfig. Is autoconfig. And we're going to say, it doesn't like that. If I do that, no, just was hoping it would indent for me, but it doesn't. And it doesn't have a helper for filling it in. No, we have to type it out. Okay, so file path, default file path, we'll just set to people 2 for now to keep it working, but I'm going to change that. Seed is going to be, damn it, initial seed, which I'll write in a second. Then command is nothing, and extra args is an empty list. Okay, so now it's upset. Oops, it's under IO, so it's got to be pure of that. Do you need that? I don't need that. Okay, so initial seed, it's IO of int, I think this is going to be. Initial seed is just that thing that I grabbed. I can't spell. Oh, that's annoying. So seed is, oops, sorry. Seed comes from initial seed. Can I join those? No, I cannot. Okay. So that's the default config. And then when I'm setting up the config, what I want to do are a few things. So one is grabbing the args. So we could set something like or we could set something like commands, command and args as like a tuple. Does that work? Is that thing? And then we want to like just take the first element off the list. I'm going to go and ask Google for the function that I'm looking for. So we want something that's from a list of A's, and it's going to give me back an A and another list of A's. That thing. Now, uncons. I think this is what I want. Taking the listen to head and tail. That's the thing I want. Okay. It's empty returns nothing. If it's not empty, it returns that. Okay. We have a type error in a second. So uncons. So I need to type let here. Uncons of args. Just named something args already. Extra args. And then args, I'm not typing well today, comes from get args. Okay, go and find uncons for me. So maybe, okay. Let's call this split args. So it's a maybe type. Second. So can I call head? No, it's a pair. Can I call first on a maybe? Or can I pass first into a maybe? Will it give me nothing back if there's nothing in there? So what do I mean by that? What I mean is if we have so our list is, it's not a list anymore, is it? A destructured list is maybe 1 and then 2, just like a comma anyway. I didn't mean maybe, I meant just. Okay, so if we type first, and then we apply it to this L, we get just 1. If we type this and we apply it to nothing, we get nothing. That's cool. Okay, so we can get our command out by saying the first of that thing, and then the second oops, second L is that. We want to drop the just out here, right? We can actually, what's the second nothing? Is nothing. Okay. That's a bit annoying because the empty list would have been fine here. It doesn't need to be not a thing at all. But anyway, so we can say something like maybe that apply to that. No. What's type of maybe? Do I mean from maybe? Maybe takes a B. An A to B. And then maybe. Oh, cool. Okay. And then nothing gives me empty list. Right. So that's how I can get the values out there once. So here I can say, so command is equal to first apply to the split args. And extra args is maybe empty list second split args. Okay, so down here we can say default config Do you know, I'm going to move the seed back in here again. I think. Because I'd rather not do this under IO. I'm just going to set the seed to be 1 in the default config. It wants like that. Okay. Here we can say seed comes from initial seed. Okay, so now we can say default config and then we'll override some stuff in it. Okay, so seed is seed. Command is command. And extra args is extra args. Okay, this is not super wonderful. There's a lot of nonsense in here. So, can we make this a bit nicer as well? I wonder. So what if seed took an autoconfig and returns IO autoconfig. And what we can return here is C, but seed is equal to that. What's this saying? Can much expect type that with that. Okay, so it's going to be pure that. Oh no, sorry. Yeah, this is where we need to do the do. I'm going to say S is this stuff. C was C set to S, but now we want to pure it. Okay, so it's going to take an existing default config and then just set the seed in it. So can we rename this? Okay, and then what about something which is parse command? So what we're going to do here, again, we're going to take another config and we're going to modify it into a new auto config. We're going to do this under IO. So parse command is C is equal to, and then we'll do this stuff. And we'll return C, but with command C. I'll just shorten it a bit. Command set C and extra args is A. From now with maybe string. Why would it be a maybe string? No, not that. Okay. Oh, because I've overwritten C, that's why. How did I do that? Okay. So now the initial config can be default config set the C to that. And then put it through parse command. But we're going to rename it to set command in a second. Okay, let's rename this to set command. And I can flip the order around a bit, I think, because what we could do is we could call get args. To set command. With default config. To set seed. So in here, we can do this as this, I think. Once get args return. I think it's a listed string, but I'm not sure. I can match type of listed string with auto config because I got them wrong way around. And this is now C and then args. Okay, we grab the args. You can call set command and then set seed. Okay, so the final bit I want to do, and the reason I'm grabbing the args separately, is what I think I can do is set file path, which is going to take autoconfig and a list of strings and return an IO of autoconfig. Okay, it gets a little bit tricky here. So I need to pass the remaining arguments through, I think. So I'm going to return an autoconfig and the remaining arguments. And I'll change this to take the tuple instead of 2 arguments. So I'm going to say set file path of C and args. Just for a second, I'm going to set it to that, just so I can put the plumbing in place. So set file path. Oops, I'm going to use the default config. Then we set the command, and then we set the seed. Okay, so now I can destructure this, hopefully. Cool. Okay. Now I have a bunch of little functions which do each bit of setting up the config. Except that this doesn't do anything yet. So what I want to do is look through the arguments for a particular argument. I'm going to look for, I think, an argument which is something like dash dash state is, are we going to force it to be one thing? I think we are. I think I'm going to look for something that starts with state equals and then a path. So what can we do with args? So we can do args. We want to search in there. Does filter return the first match, or does it? Doesn't sound like it returns the first match, does it? Find, is that a thing? There's filter. There is oh, I want to go from list of A's to single A. I just have gone to the list anyway. Okay, building lists, scan, sublists, searching lists. Elm. Nope. Lookup. So A, no. Search with predicate. There is find. Okay, so I need to import it. So find takes my function and then sorry, it takes function, it takes my list and returns a maybe A, which is great. How do I tell the string starts with something? So we want to go from string to bool. Come on, Google. Is there a data.string? No. Is exact? No. Oh, it feels like there must be a function which will tell me whether or not a string starts with something. Haskell string match. It's not what I'm after. Okay. List function pattern matching. Oh, it's just a list, isn't it? So I can put each element in. That'd be quite annoying. Oh no, there must be a way of doing this. Because it's a list, it's probably it might be in list. So is there some kind of like list starts with? Let's do a list extra. Is prefix of. Thank you very much. It's messing up here. Is prefix of. That's exactly what I was looking for, I think. If I can find it in data.list. List, here we go. Is prefix of the world. True. Thank you very much. It's like Google but faster. So I just import data.list. My predicate is prefix of. Yep, it's not that. It's prefix of, and then it's prefix in the list. Is that right? Is it first? Is it prefix a second? Yep. Okay. So I could say something like what the flag was. It was something like state equals, and is it prefix of state equals hello. Oh, I didn't mean to that. Sorry, the predicate. I just want to be that. And then we can say PR of state equals hello. It's false. It's prefix of. Am I getting this the wrong way around? Ooh, can't do that. Oh, it's because of the type start. Goodness sake. It's true. Okay, cool. So PR of that should be the same thing. Yeah. Unfortunately, a delay on the chat, so although you're probably screaming at it for a while, I had to notice it myself. Okay. So find, and then our predicate in the args that are passed in. So is prefix of state equals. I'm going to let that. Where is that an error? Oh, because I haven't typed do. Okay, now I can import find, and I can import is prefix of. Oh, so this will give me back a maybe. Okay, so we can say if, no, not if, case opt of, and then, oh, will it fill in the options for me? No. I want to see it's an action. No. Okay, there's no helper to fill in to do the case splitting for me. Okay, so if we got nothing back, then return pure C. If we got a match back, then what do we do? Oops. Okay, so it won't be pure C, it'll be pure C and args. If we got a match back, we're going to have an equals sign in it. So we want to, we could just drop that and return everything else in string, couldn't we? So is there some kind of drop? Functions on strings. No. Head last in it. I could drop the number of characters that are in that starting string, but I'd rather see if I can just drop the part that it matches. So like to match something and then delete it. But I don't think I can do that. So split out and then a character. Drop while. Nope. Strip prefix. This is what I wanted. Okay, so let flag equals management state equals. It's a very shonky way of doing command line argument matching or flag matching, but it's probably good enough for this. I should really use get opt applicative. But I'm not going to do that. I'm going to struggle through this instead to learn some more Haskell. So just we want to say, I've forgotten the function already, it was strip prefix. Well, let's path is strip prefix of strip prefix flag from M, and then we can say just do pure, couldn't I? What was into that? Right. Alt. Import that. But something like that is going to be file path equals path. Oh, what's a maybe here? It returns nothing. Okay. So we can do maybe empty string strip prefix flag of M. Oh, wait, that's not what I want. Try again. I want from maybe that and that. Is that a thing? Cool. Okay, so I think if I pass in minus state, it should now set the file path based on that. It's going to be a bit tricky to test. I'm actually just going to do something like, can I say print C? No instance for show. Okay, back into here. Oops, no, back into here. So autoconfig deriving show. Again, okay, I can print C out. So in theory, if I say not go run, stack run, state is people. Oops. Okay. Okay and not okay. So we pull out the file path, that was cool. We set our seed, but our command picked up stuff from the arg. So I'm not stripping it out of the arg or passing it through. Okay, so back into here. You want to, is there some helper for splitting around? Like if you have a list and a predicate, will it return the stuff before and then your value and then the stuff after? Seems unlikely. Do and do not satisfy the predicate. Pair of elements. Okay, so I wonder if a partition could work for me here. So let's just try some REPL. Oops. I'll say args is a list of strings, so we'll have hello, and we'll have state equals whatever people equals in that case. And we'll have another thing which is world perhaps. And our predicate as before is prefix of minus state equals import data.list. Okay, and then PR of args find. No, it takes a predicate in the list. Okay, so find still works, but if I call, instead of calling find, if I call partition, cool. I think that's what we want. And then if we give it a list with just hello in it, you get an empty thing back there, and then that. Okay. So instead of calling find, oops. Oh, what's that option? That one. So in here we can say we will match our option and rest. Do that. So if the option is an empty list, and if it's has anything in it, check away the rest. So pattern is not matched. Empty list followed by stuff. So opt is not the whole list, is it? Okay. What's this error now? It's a list of things. That's what I meant to type before. Okay, so it starts with something. Then we ignore the rest. We just pick the first one that matches. We use it and we return rest in there. Okay, so try running this again. So we've got file path as people, command is nothing, and extra args are nothing as well. That's cool. Okay. So we can now update our commands to not do any argument parsing, but just to use this previously parsed stuff. That's my thinking anyway. Can I make this any nicer? No, let's just leave it at that. Okay, so now when we come into here, we're given the list of commands that we're matching, the config in the state, and then we run it and we return the output from exec RWS. Okay, so in here, args now comes from the command. You say auto, so not from the command, from auto config. Command and extra args is equal to config. Maybe let. Yes, do that. What the config is not how to field command. What was it? Auto config totally has the field command. Am I clashing with another mention of command? I believe I am. Okay, let's rename some stuff. I think this is a place that does it. Oh no, it'll be down here as well. Okay, so back into here, and then we'll just grab CMD, and then we'll import that. Okay. This now, I'm going to rename to action. What I'm going to call tail args here, it's just a applied to extra args. Now I think I can delete this. Okay, it's not perfect yet, but let's just see if it works. So hopefully this will actually run this time. Yep. Okay. And then she'll pass in list, and it should list the people. Oops. Well, I'll pass in something incorrect and make sure it prints out usage. And then I'm going to put list at the beginning. Okay, cool. So that still works. Just going to go back to main, and I'm going to delete that for a second. Okay. So how do we make this nicer? I could do something a bit weird to usage. Oh, but I have to take the state. Thinking if I pass the state in here, and do this, and then S there. I get it to return IO of a tuple of, what's the type of this? Auto item. So I can go auto state and a list of auto item. And here we can just say your S that. Okay, so then we can say something like from maybe, and then usage s commands, or exec rws a config s. Okay, from maybe needs the maybe type as well. Well, that's not what I want to do at all. What I was going to say is, what I was trying to do is sort of say if our action is nothing, then we return this. Okay, the function I want then is maybe. And rows. No, I think this should be okay. Exec action is going to go from oh, it needs a whole bunch of stuff, doesn't it? It needs auto config, it needs auto state, it needs the action, which is command. Just A, and what's A in this case? It's, I think the type of it's just command actually. Okay, so exec action of config state and command. I don't think it is command, I think, hang on. I think if we look at this, no, it doesn't just type command. But it's command and action. I think it's actually a type action. Getting a bit confused here. So I'm wondering what the type of A is down here. I think it's an action. Find out. Okay, so we have a config or state or action, and then we can just say exec rws a config state. Oh, it needs to return something. So it's going to return this pair of auto state and list of auto item. Okay. So we call it with config and state, and then we need to call pure on output of that. Okay, so we're looking at the command. If there's no command, then we try and get the default action. If there is a command, then we look it up in our list of commands. Okay, and if we match the name, but if it matched something which is a command, that's right, then we just return the action from that command. And if it was command with args, then we return the action but with the args applied to it. Those return nothing. And then we're saying, look at the action. If it's nothing, then print usage. If it is something, then execute it, and then compute it under IO, basically. So it feels like we could kind of do a similar trick with this, where we can do a maybe on this as well. So do a maybe, get the defaults. So we can say default action is, it's going to go commands to action. Default action is DC action. Oh, sorry, it comes back to maybe action. Because we can apply this to D commands. Does that work? Right. Type is commands. Oh no, sorry. I'm not sure what I'm doing anymore. I was going to say default action and give it the command structure here. Do that. Okay, this doesn't have the same precedence as this. Anyway, so we'll look up the default command. So just adding a bit of this noise. So you can now say let action, oops, not guess action, equals maybe default action and then if you do get if we do have a command, then we'll say maybe find action and we'll apply this to command. So find action, I'm just going to move the content of this down a bit. Again, it takes commands. And it returns maybe an action. So default action with commands is equal to I guess he's grabbed this whole case thing. What was SC in this case? SC was the string, I guess, name of the command. I guess it needs SC and it needs extra args. Extra args is a list of strings. Just gonna call it args at this point. Oops. Okay. This is a bit of a mess because I haven't passed stuff in. So this takes commands and it takes, oh, hang on. I need to flip the arguments around a bit. So the very last thing it's going to take is the thing that comes out of the maybe, which is just a single string. So it takes commands and extra args. Find action applied to many arguments. So find action takes commands, takes a list of strings, takes a single string. Let me fix this one first, and we'll come back to this. Oh, that was a problem. Okay, cool. So I think delete that. What was CS? Oh, that comes out of commands, is that right? Yes, I didn't flip these arguments around. Okay, I'm going to give this a better name. So we were looking it up by name from the commands available. And then we just match on the stuff comes back. So yeah, we match command, then we return it, we match command, we return it partially applied, and then we don't match anything, we return nothing. Okay. And it's split up a bit. I'm not sure it's easy to read, but the functions are shorter, so I'm a bit happier. So does it still work? Does it even compile? It does. And then we pass in people too, you get a different answer. Cool. Okay, so I can now tell it where the state file is. Okay, we're almost there. So one last thing I want to do is I really want to say initial config pass it into initial state, pass this into run command commands, pass it into print result, and then save state. I think this is not going to work well. Well, it's going to be a disaster. So I'm going to need initial state to take the config and then return probably a tuple containing the config and the state, and then run commands will take that tuple and will return new state and list of items. Print result will need to take both and return the state, and then save state will just take the state and print it. Oh, it needs to config as well. Do you know what? I'm not going to do this because it's going to be a nightmare. I could do it with a monad stack, I guess, like RWST or something, but I'm not going to, because I think that's going to be more confusing. Oops. Let's just do that. Okay, cool. So are we done then? Let's go into config, which lives in state, obviously. The file path I'm going to put as so default config. The reason I'm doing this is I want to get an environment variable out for $home. Oh, I'll change that to take list of args and return it, I think. So I'll take a list of args and I'm going to return the tuple of the config and list of args. So makes it a fit, so we will call default config, and then we'll call set file path. So set file path, we'll need to take this tuple now. There are two different arguments. And we'll destructure it here. Okay, just check that still works. Okay, how do we get an environment variable out? Is there some kind of getEnv? There is. There's a getEnv default as well. So I'm guessing the arguments for this are the default first and then that's not going to show me, is it? I want the help for getEnv. Or the type of getEnv anyway. Where did it come from? System, no. System environment blank. I'm not sure it should have pulled it in for now. So what's the type of getEnv to start with? I guess it's just empty if it's not set. String, it doesn't say which is which. So getEnv, oops, default home home. Okay, so around. So we're going to look up home and not found. Cool. So I think that's what I want to do. So we can here home and actually presumably just get m without the default. We'll just do an empty string. Ooh, no, it throws an exception. Okay, cool. Get empty default is probably what I want. If home is not set, we'll look in the current directory. So home is equal to that, and then we will say file path is, let's do it here, couldn't we? Do in here. Okay, so it's going to be home directory do I have an XDG home or something? It's XDG. You see config. No. Okay, that's not a thing that's set. So I'm going to do home / dot config auto state. Wow, not let. Okay. So if I run this now and don't tell it what its state is, it should error horribly because that directory doesn't exist. That's cool. At least it's picked the right thing. So if I say twiddle / dot config auto, I'll just copy people into that directory. Oops. Oh. That's cool. And then we can still override it. Cool. Okay, that's a more sensible place to put it. XDG config home. That's what I want, but it wasn't in my env, I don't think. No, it's not set here. So I think you're correct. That's what it should be. But I don't have it here, so I'm just going to hard code it. It's probably something to do with WSL setup. Actually, what we could do is maybe something like XDG home is get default and then XDG g config home or that. Oops, around. Or we do this horrible thing where we go home +/ dot config / that should do. And then we can say xtg home, that's probably how we write it in Haskell. And then we will just stick auto state onto that. Check that still works. So we'll get it from xtg if we can. If we can't, we'll get it from home. And if we can't get it from home, we'll get it from the current directory. Cool. That seems to work. So I think that's probably it. I think it now does everything I want it to do. I might be missing an action actually. Oops, didn't mean to do that. What actions do we have? If we look in the main, it's the easiest place to tell. We got shuffle. Yeah, we don't have postpone or delay or whatever, which I do need at some point. But I think I'm going to call it. I'm going to call it a day because I've been doing this for over an hour now. I think I'm going to start working on this in streaming. I might add the delay stuff some other time. But next week, yep, I'm going to pick up Servant and start to write a web app, I think, because that's going to be quite interesting. I should learn a lot more stuff. But yeah, thanks for following along. I now have a working program, which is great, and I'm using this every week, which is cool. As I said, next week, we'll have a look at a web app. So hopefully see you then. Goodbye.